Shrug family, this week on Barbell Shrugged, Dr. Christopher Perry is back in the house. We're talking about sleep and the digital era. Yes, we're going to be talking about some wearables that you can have, but also how all this relates to the AI movement. And honestly, I don't know that much about it. That's why we brought him on, because he's smart and he knows everything about sleep. And maybe there's like a robot coming. And in that robot, you could just work 24 straight hours. You train 24 straight hours, and it does all the recovery for you and then injects you with everything good that would happen over like an 8 to 9 hour perfect sleep. That's my goal. I don't know if that's possible, but Dr. Perry is here to let us know. As always, friends, make sure you get over to rapidhealthreport.com. That is where Dan Garner, Dr. Andy Galpin are doing a free lab lifestyle and performance analysis, and you can access that free report over at rapidhealthreport.com. Friends, let's get into the show. Welcome to Barbell Shrugged. I'm Anders Varner, Doug Larson, Coach Travis Mash, Dr. Christopher Perry. Today, we're going to be talking about Clockwork Cognition. There should be like a little TM over that for you. I've never heard that before, and we're going to be digging into it. Before we do that, though, did you guys see on Instagram the other day that Travis Mash was shirtless with 6 abs, flexing it out? I don't know who you're showing off for in your house, but your wife loves you already. You were trying to get a little extra already, and you were in there just earning it.
Oh, dude, trying to get extra love, you know? Like, you can't just ask for things. You got to earn things.
And I'm not even texting him about those abs, man. I'm waiting until Barbell Shrug comes around. Just that dude is doing male modeling stuff in there.
It feels good to be in shape again.
It looks as lean as you do. There's only one of those in the whole world. Like,
see, that's the difference. And I'm not trying to be a fat power. I never was one, so I'm not trying to be now. I'm gonna be a jacked power.
You got any more room to grow there? You trying to get leaner, or are you kind of at the bottom of your weight here?
I'm probably there and just trying to just perfect. Because like I'm already where I want to be 190. I'm not doing 220. I'm gonna do like 198. So I'm already there. So no, just try to keep getting leaner at this weight. So go up a little, down a little, up a little, down a little.
Yeah,
muscle, that's enough about you. Dr. Perry's here. You've already got your 3 minutes.
Bro, like it's him. I use a lot of the stuff I learned from him like now. It's no joke either. My sleep is by far the best it's ever been. Thanks to him.
I love that.
You're welcome, Travis. I want to know how you got your kids to master the overhead squat at such a young age. That was something I was like. So on Instagram the other day, after the abs show, of course, you had two of your boys. I think one was your son, the other one was one of his buddies, just crushing overhead squats.
When they do it well, you feed them, and when they don't, you shame them.
Exactly, and you chain them outside.
There you go. You've lost your last name until tomorrow, until you do it better. And then they're going to be a match, so they learn how to over squat.
Even my daughter can do overhead squats, Dr. Perry. My 6-year-old is just like, but they grew up around it. That's the benefit. You see it all the time. I guess it's just what we do. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
I need that mobility.
My son.
Tell us what Clockwork Cognition at the highest level is. Since I'm
tell me so I can get more jacked.
In the U.S. trademark office right now, hooking you up. Tell me what I'm writing here.
So Clockwork Cognition, the more and more I learn about sleep, you cannot ignore your circadian rhythms. When it comes to everything performance, whether it's athletic, whether you're trying to perform better in the classroom as a student, or if you're an executive who just needs to think more clearly when you're putting together your products or your programming, or just getting ready for meetings, you really have to pay attention to what time of day it is and what your chronotype is, because every single process in the human body happens optimally at a certain time. And if you're not proactive in thinking what might be best as far as what action to take at what certain time of the day could be best for that, you're missing out on gains. And it doesn't matter if it's fitness gains, you trying to lose weight, you trying to build muscle, or you're trying to just perform at an event or perform for a big talk on stage in Abu Dhabi, Dr. Galpin, right? You got to know when to be able to actually time these things appropriately. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of a statement here, we're learning more and more that the best fitness program falls flat if the clock you're running on it and the screen you stare at and the apps that you outsource your thinking to are all fighting your biology. So why not align everything and get it ready to rock and roll? So it's one big fighting efficient machine.
Yeah, well, the thing, this is hysterical because I asked my kids the other week what they thought I did for work, and their answer was, "You yell at your computer." And I went, "Dang." Professionally, learning what a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old now thinks about what I do for work. Maybe they're right. Maybe I'm just yelling at this computer all the time. How am I supposed to overcome the fact that I am in front of a screen all day long, um, and I'm even in a garage. I get pretty good natural light in here, but um, you know, it's still not perfect. I assume I'm not supposed to only have my vision be the 3 feet in front of me with artificial light and
Right.
then attempt to go to sleep right away when I get home after the stress of work, the computer, the screen, the not looking into the horizon, then my phone, then the TV, and then lights out. And it's supposed to happen immediately, right?
Right. So that's we're going to get there. So you're way ahead of me. So you're at the toolkit part when we're going to talk about what can we do to optimize those things. You have to understand your circadian rhythms first before we get there.
Yeah.
And so the first thing, the overarching tree that you have to look at is what is your chronotype? You're one of three. You're either a very morning person, all right? You're a morning lark, they call it, or you're in the middle, which most people in the United States tend to be, which is a normal morning eveningness. That means you kind of drift to the morning, but you could adapt and drift to the evening as well. Or you're just a straight night owl. You're someone who does not get up past 9 a.m., 10 a.m. every morning. You feel terrible if you wake up early, and you're staying up till 11, sometimes midnight, and you feel great about it. That is the definition night owl. Not as many people fit that chronotype, but they are out there for sure. The reason why that's important to identify is because that means that your body's processes are all operating on that specific clock. So if I was going to give you advice as far as when you should get light exposure, but I'm talking to someone who might be actually a different chronotype from what is seen in just the general information that's out there on something like social media, I might be actually doing you more disservice and more harm than good when it comes to your performance. This is the biggest example I can give you right now is actually a study that just came out in Nature that talks about the fitness strength training program that was given to certain individuals who were trying to figure out how can I best lose weight. So this was a 12-week trial. I've got my notes here for you. And they compared and contrast individuals who worked out in the morning versus those who worked out in the evening. And the chronotype is very important because when you look at something called process C and process S, process C in English is basically, think of it as that's your circadian rhythm, right? That is everything that governs when core body temperature changes over time. That changes your ultradian rhythm. It operates your peripheral clocks, everything. Whereas the other thing, process S, just kind of think of that as your sleep process. That's how we garner how adenosine rises up throughout the day, reaches its peak, and then that gives us the signal that we need for then adenosine to be dissipated and core body temperature to go down so we can fall asleep. So with that being said, there is an opportune time every day for you to be physically active. Why? Because when your core body temperature is at its highest, this is why most athletic events should happen in the later afternoon, evening, you got two cool things that happen. A, you're riding the wave at which cortisol came up and then started to come down really fast. So energetically, you're at your best. All right. You're firing on all cylinders. Your autonomic nervous system is primed up and ready to go. And your core body temperature is at its highest peak before it hits late afternoon and starts to go down again. When core body temperature is its highest, that's when your body's enzymatic reactions are more efficient. So your body's utilizing and breaking down energy more efficiently. When you're more warmed up, as it were, you get better muscle contractions, better contractility, better central nervous system activation. So if I'm Travis Mash and I'm trying to get an even better PR because I'm going for more than just abs now, then doing my workouts in the late afternoons might actually be the most beneficial, especially if my goal is to be able to lift heavier weights. Same thing goes when you've got someone doing a VO2 max test. For half of our clients who do their VO2 max testing during the decode or post-delivery process, I actually always recommend that they do it in the afternoon because you're going to see sometimes a 3 to 5 point difference, oftentimes, if you're not careful, based off if they're not where they should be in the morning, but then they're nice and warmed up, ready to go, better fed later on in the afternoon. It just happened with Basir. So really something interesting to look at when it comes to athletic performance. Let's bring it back to this study that was done comparing the exercises in the morning versus the evening. Now, I have my own critiques of this study, and I'm prepared to share it, but it's super, super cool. After 12 weeks, the individuals who exercised in the morning lost more body fat, all right, and more triglycerides much faster than the individuals did in the evening. Why is that? And so, but then again, you look at the lifters in the evening, they might not have had as much body fat loss, but they had better cardiovascular health outcomes. What happened here?
Dr. Andy Galpin here. As a listener of the show, you've probably heard us talking about the RTA program, which we're all incredibly proud of. It's a culmination of everything Dan Garner and I have learned over more than 2 decades of working with some of the world's most elite performers, award-winning athletes, billionaires, musicians, executives, and frankly, anyone who just wanted to be at their absolute best. RTA is not a normal coaching program. It's not just macros and a workout plan. It's not physique transformation and pre and post pictures. RTA is something completely different. RTA is incredibly comprehensive and designed to uncover your unique molecular signature, find your performance anchors, and solve them permanently. You'll be working with not one person, but rather a full team of elite professionals, each with their own special expertise to maximize precision, accuracy, and effectiveness of your analysis and optimization plan. RTA isn't about treating symptoms or quick fixes. It's about unlocking your full potential and looking, feeling, and performing at your absolute best, physically and mentally, when the stakes are the highest. To learn more, visit aratelab.com. That's ARETE lab.com. Now, back to the show.
Look at the lifters in the evening, they might not have had as much body fat loss, but they had better cardiovascular health outcomes. What happened here? And so what we see with this is more than likely, it's not that the morning was better in any way. It's that because of the timing of the clocks, they just move different needles depending on what time of day you're training. And so when it comes to what we need to consider, all right, what is our goal? If it's weight loss, maybe we need to consider, okay, why would someone lose more weight if they exercised in the morning? And if I were to just propose that question to you guys really quick, if we had our clients who came to you and said, hey, I saw this study, why does your program recommend to our rapid clients that we need to work out in the morning because that potentially loses more weight? How would you explain that? So what would be the first thing that would come to your mind, Travis?
I mean, I guess at that point you're taking advantage of like cortisol levels, in the morning. Like, I mean, some people are going to say the fasted cardio might be better, but like, I've never really thought, which is better. It's just whatever is the most convenient.
Think about it from a coaching perspective. Why would doing something first thing in the morning like that be beneficial? How would that result in your day being better versus someone who didn't exercise in the morning?
General blood flow, I think, is a massive piece of this. I would imagine there's some sort of hormonal response to just creating early morning stress that even if it's not stress in the way that people like normally think about stress as like some burden to you, but turning on your nervous system so that you are prepared for whatever, maybe not fight, but like awareness or focus is needed. And there's probably like a spike, and then kind of, if you were to look at it almost like an energy system where there's like a big spike if you sprint,
yes,
and get into like a VO2 max zone where there's a big spike in whatever hormonal cortisol side of it, and then a slow depletion of that throughout the day versus just going into your day with zero movement, zero walking, zero
exactly
attention to your like to revving your body up to prepare for whatever's coming.
So physiologically speaking, 100%.
Yes. No degree in exercise science.
Good
Zero.
for you.
Just barbell shrugged.
Yeah.
And you can read that on almost any article on why lifters heard you should do your cardio after your weights, because it creates this physiologically milieu, as it were, as far as where the hormones are at that time to potentially benefit you to then being able to utilize more fat after you train, because you're also being more active at a point in time where the intensity is low enough and you're primed to be able to utilizing fat for fuel because of the changes that it makes to your respiratory exchange rate at that point. take it a step further, and this was also kind of my critique of that on what it else could have been attributed to. Just psychologically speaking, think about it. When you exercise first thing in the morning, what does this do for you mentally? And so this actually, at least in my own experience in working with clients, knowing myself and knowing how they work, that when they work out first thing in the morning, you are more likely to make better choices throughout the day, cognitively
Oh,
speaking.
sure.
All right. You are more likely to be active simply from the standpoint that I got my hard crap done first thing. I feel better about myself now. I'm going to make better choices. And when you actually see the positive impact that exercising has on just simple executive function and your ability to make those better choices, that all aligns perfectly with then you being able to potentially engage in movement that keeps you more active, keeps you moving, and potentially resulting in more caloric expenditure that resulted in the deficit that helps you lose that weight over 12 weeks.
Oh, that
So
makes
you're talking about
the most sense of all of anyone I've ever heard explain it is like the increases in like BDNF, the hippocampus lighting up, like, and like, so you're going to burn overall more because like it's waking the brain up and like you're going to make better decisions. And like
100%.
that makes the most sense of any that I've ever heard. Otherwise I've always said I hate doing anything in the morning, but that makes good sense.
Yeah. Is there any research? Because I would say this year is the first year I've ever consistently worked out in the morning. Is there any research on how long it takes to change your body clock from like a normal person, whatever like the center of the bell curve is, to now you're an early morning or a late night person based on, maybe you got a job where you just have to focus late at night? Is there any studies on how long that takes to normalize?
So it's also just understanding biology. So genetically speaking, if you are an early morning person, or genetically speaking, you are a night owl, it's going to be hard as hell to be able to break from that. That does not mean you can't change and adapt yourself to being able to be functional at a different time. Because my first knee-jerk reaction to what you just asked would be, sure, yes, you can move your body clock. This is exactly what we do for athletes or for executives who are traveling overseas, and we need to do time shifting protocols. You can shift your clock by anywhere from a half an hour to 45 minutes to an hour by one day if you do it consistently over time. So for example, just did this for a client where they were going to, where are they going today? They're going to Spain today. We started, they're on the East Coast time. So we started them last week. You always want to start early as possible. Let's say their natural time to wake up was, let's say 7 a.m. And we need to get them as early as possible. So by the time they get to Spain, when they arrive that morning, their internal clock's morning is at the same time as when they land in Spain. That way there's no jet lag, there's no issues. And so what I would normally do is like, okay, cool. We need to back up your wake time by approximately a half an hour each day leading up to that day to do so. So if you ask the question, how long does it take for my body to shift? It matters on the degree of hours that you shifted yourself out, pushed yourself out of alignment. So if you slept in or if you woke up earlier. And so you could also ask the question, well, how long have you been in that routine? Because then it could potentially take longer. Yeah. So the roundabout way of saying, if let's say Anders woke up every day at 7 a.m. and you wanted to get yourself used to waking up at 5 a.m., then it would approximately take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks of you utilizing a shifting protocol like that for yourself before it would feel natural. Because, yeah, you could gun it from 0 to 100 in 3 seconds and say, all right, I'm going to just wake up earlier tomorrow. That's going to suck. All right, you're not going to feel good. All right.
It took me like 2 months before my HRV came back up to normal numbers. And that was going from probably like a 7 maybe 7:30 wake up, more like 7 to like 5:45, and going straight to the gym after that. It was long. It was much longer than I thought it was going to be.
Circadian misalignment has what I found to be the most potent impact on your heart rate variability and your autonomic nervous system compared to anything else. Yes, sleep deprivation does it too. Nowhere near as much circadian misalignment. This is why I'm so gung-ho on people waking up at the same time and going to bed at the same time as often as possible. And you'll hear Galpin has talked about this too. He agrees.
So if you just have one night out, you stay up till 2 a.m., then for the next couple of days, your HRV will be off, and then eventually it will get back on track after a few days, or how long does that take?
I just had my anniversary on Sunday. I'm still feeling the effects today. What's today? It's a Tuesday. It's Tuesday. Yes. So when you push yourself out of alignment that much, it can have a detrimental impact. It's going to take time for you to recover, because it throws off the entire system as far as, all right, how many hours ahead did you push yourself, or how much did you sleep in, how late did you stay up, and then also what habits were you doing? Were you drinking alcohol? Were you doing all these other things that could have potentially even caused more stress onto the system in numerous ways? And so, yes, 1,000%. It only takes one day or two in order to throw you off. And so that's why they'll say, because people ask me all the time, well, I sleep in by an hour or two on the weekends, and it doesn't tend to negatively influence me in that way. As long as you are doing it no more than 1 to 2 days on the weekends, and it's no more than a half an hour to an hour, tends to be okay. But if you are staying up late, ridiculously the night before, and then really sleeping in by a few hours, then yeah, you're going to mess it up hardcore for sure.
Yeah, I'd say like a common thing for me would be, every couple of weeks I'll go watch the UFC. I normally go to bed at like 10:30 would be like my average for any normal night, we'll say, and then I'll go watch the UFC. It doesn't end until midnight, maybe 12:30. By the time I actually get home and like fall asleep, it's going to be 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning in some cases, depending on how late I stay after the show gets over, and I just, I'm saying goodbye to friends and whatever it is. So for things like that are going to be a recurring part of my life, to what degree is that actually a problem, or is it just a part of life and it's no big deal?
And so you can look at this from a number of ways, because if I were to be a strict physiologist who didn't care about exercise right now, I would say, yeah, you're continuously doing damage to yourself. But at that same time, you could also come back and say, but are you doing other habits that are potentially increasing your resilience towards the negative health effects of the actions that you're taking? If you're exercising and you're eating really, really, really well, you're giving yourself some sort of guardrail, as it were, to at least make you less susceptible to the negative metabolic or cardiovascular health risks that come from doing that. Because no matter what, if you push your body clock out of alignment, you're going to see stress placed on the autonomic nervous system. That's putting stress on the cardiovascular system. That's messing with your metabolic health too, right? You cannot escape that. But if you exercise, or you are consistent with that, and you're eating well, and you're not eating terribly, regardless of you doing that, you're making yourself more resilient to those negative effects. Because you can see just one night is all that it requires of you to stay up late or misalign your clock and get social jet lag for you to completely screw with your glycemic variability and glucose regulation. Like, it only takes one night for that. Same thing when it comes to your cardiovascular health and your cardiovascular health metrics. Look how easy it is to see changes in heart rate variability, or your resting heart rate for that matter, just from one night of sleep deprivation. It's almost instant. But if you're exercising, especially first thing in the morning, so here, tool time, Anders, when it comes to what you can utilize to feel more active on a day that you get really, really poor sleep like that, or you push your circadian clock, exercise first thing in the morning, because exercise is that one thing that, especially done in the morning, advances your clock. So if you know that, hey, it's UFC season, we're going to be watching this all the time. So we just had this with basketball, right? We've got a number of Canadian clients of ours who love NBA basketball. All right. If you know who I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. And he would stay up constantly because of this, over and over and over again, knowing he's going to be tired the next day when he gets into the OR performing surgeries. And I told him, like, look, dude, you got to make sure that if you're going to do that, that's cool, but you got to do the tools necessary that next morning to making sure that you are proactive, awake, and cognizant when performing those surgeries, so you don't run into a lawsuit because you had just that 10% decrement to your cognition at that time that screwed with your reaction time that can result in something bad happening. So exercise is the first thing you can do first thing in the morning that not only helps you just kind of wake up a little bit and become more aware and help reduce the negative influence that misaligning your clock has, it also advances your clock, so it makes it easier for you to then fall asleep earlier that subsequent evening, so you can get a good night's rest going forward.
So when you say exercise, are you talking about like aerobic, anaerobic, weight training?
I've seen benefits from anything, but HIIT seems to be the most potent because it's such high intensity.
Wait, so as far as damage control, so back to the UFC example, if I stay up till 2:30 in the morning and I normally wake up at 6:30 in the morning, if I slept for 4 hours, is it better to sleep for 4 hours and get up at my normal time at 6:30, wake up and train, and then just get right back on track with my normal bedtime routine, etc. after that?
So this is the crazy debate that I've had with my PhD mentor back and forth, because he is a big believer. Him and I are pretty aligned now and feeling the same about this, and we've talked to other physicians about it too. Exercise first thing seems to be king to help you with this, meaning all that to say, wake up at the same time. Because if you can do your absolute best to at least keep your circadian rhythm aligned, you have a better shot at building up that amount of sleep pressure that next evening or the evening to come so that you can fall asleep at the right time when there's no UFC that next night. That way you can then get as much restitution, have a better chance of eliminating some of that sleep debt that you just created. That way your next day has a better chance at being okay. The problem is you just need to be sure that you stay awake the entire day. Now, luckily, you have other cool things that we can utilize to help mitigate the potential issues, right? You've got yoga nidra, you've got NSDR practices. We know how beneficial those can be when it comes to helping you restore just a little bit baseline dopamine, because we know that when you push your clock out of alignment or you get sleep deprived, and this is actually good for just being focusing during the day as well. If you're having a hard time being able to stick to your work or focus because you didn't get any sleep last night, dude, do some yoga nidra NSDR, because you get the same benefits as you would from a nap without reducing your sleep pressure, so you can still get to bed that following night. And all you need is 10 to 15 minutes of a simple NSDR yoga nidra practice. Just don't fall asleep. But don't also try not to drink too much caffeine either, because that's the mistake that people will make too, is they'll be like, oh, I'm sleep deprived. What's the first thing I'm going to go for? I'm going to go for 24 ounces of a venti cold brew or an iced Americano. All right. You might actually overstress the system even more. That's not going to help you. All right. So keep caffeine at an all-time low during those particular circumstances.
Yeah, I know this is a very person to person, but do you have a rough amount of caffeine that's kind of the optimum amount without overdoing it?
It depends on your body size, right? And so I always forget the exact milligram per kilogram, but I'm in the camp that for most people should never go above 300 milligrams per day before 11 a.m. And so because I've talked to some really cool physicians in the field who specialize in working with individuals with insomnia, and they've taken a better approach that I think a lot of people will enjoy hearing. If you have problems sleeping or just problems in general with circadian rhythm related disorders or anything like that, don't eliminate caffeine, because who's going to want to take away the one thing that gives them social joy in the first thing in the morning is their cup of coffee? Instead, just reduce the overall amount that you're having. And so, because that's the problem that most people have, right? They have these vices that they need to feel like they can be productive, which kind of goes in with the Clockwork Cognition theme for today and learning how to be proactive and being able to think clearly. They need that vice. They need that to be able to limit their stress so that they can feel that they can be productive and perform well. And so if you can at least get it to the point to where coffee is before that time of 11 a.m. to noon for most people, and you have below the crazy amount that people are used to having. And so I've seen people have close to 600 milligrams before. That's the same equivalent as 4 to 6 cups of coffee and a 300 milligram pre-workout. So that's a lot of friggin' caffeine. So you need to make sure that you are reducing that as much as possible, because it's a stimulant. So just like you think about every time you're stimulating your autonomic nervous system, you stimulate it once when you sleep deprive yourself. You did it again twice when you misaligned your sleep. You did it again when you piled a ton of drinkable gasoline into your cup and drink an incessant amount and put even more stress onto the system. And I say gasoline because it lights a fire. but keep it below 300 milligrams per as much as possible, which is, I say, the equivalent of, depending on where you like to get your coffee, 1.5 to 3 cups of coffee. Yeah, it's not a lot.
Everybody just cringed. Everybody was like, "Oh God."
When you say the cups, it really depends upon the size of the cup.
Right. We can't do 3 giant mugs.
I don't actually like a standardized cup. Like, that's not.
Neither do I.
Cup. No one wants that. I like a 20-ounce cup, and then we can say that's a good idea. 3 of those. Performance levels.
Performance levels, sure.
So, but what about strength training though? Is there a time that's more optimal? Would you say? I mean, I definitely have read studies of the morning not being the most optimal for strength.
It's not, and it's you can do it for sure. Like, because what is the most important thing at some point? Like, if you're now, luckily, resistance training, when you look at the energy system requirements, you don't need to be able to go for long periods of time. You don't need to rely on carbohydrates all the time, but you know that it does help you when you are fed. Like, think of any time that you PR'd or had the best workout you ever had in the gym. More than likely you were fed, had adequate carbohydrate proteins, and had been awake for at least 5 to 8 hours that day. Why? Because body temperature is higher. If body temperature is higher, you're more than likely going to perform better, especially if you're riding the process C wave. And so when you look at how cortisol raises throughout the day, this is why we take morning cortisol at rapid when we do our blood work and saliva. So we can see the trend of cortisol throughout the day. And if we see that the awakening response is abnormal, then that usually indicates to us that someone is chronically stressed and they're getting tired during the day because their cortisol is shifted and it rises and falls at different times than what it should. And so if you really want to take advantage of the natural wave, then you take advantage of it how it happens in the afternoon and it starts to come down. That mid-afternoon, late afternoon workout is going to be the best, physiologically speaking, for you to be able to perform at your PR. But this doesn't mean that you can't have a great workout in the morning. You just need to take the steps towards having to do so. So pull the Dan Garner. Dan works out every morning at 3:30 in the friggin' morning, all right? I guarantee you what's allowing him to be able to still be able to train well is some sort of caffeine, his Vitargo in a glass, all right, because he's getting that fast digesting carbohydrates, and he's warming up really, really well. You need to make sure that you're warming up well aerobically, anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes, just to get that body temperature up so that you can actually have a good, productive workout.
When does he sleep? How is he getting 8 hours?
He sleeps at like 7, doesn't he?
Wow.
He goes to bed pretty early.
Like, how with the family? I don't understand. That's amazing.
Yep. So, but I hope I got it right as far as.
Yo, tell us your routine these days, Chris. Like, when do you train? What's your chronotype? How have you made adjustments over the years, knowing what you know?
I'm a major morning person. I love waking up at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. It just happens like clockwork now. And that is the best time for me to train.
I wish. Man, that'd be great.
That was your 4:35? Yeah.
Yep, 4:35.
Time to get low, I guess. I feel like
and so now Kelly and I are in a really weird transition right now. As you guys know, we moved from Kentucky and now settling into New York. So we haven't had a place of our own for 2 months. So we're kind of in this really weird phase right now where I'm not exactly able to keep the schedule that I want, but in a perfect world, and I actually just signed up for a high rock. So I'm just starting to get into that training now as far as getting it up. I'm entering that phase of my life where I'm starting to get away from bro splits and getting into what actually means to be an athlete and trying to expand my training and functional training. You know, maybe even get into some Nasima rope flow that I saw on Mark Smelly's podcast. Really, really cool. We'll talk about that later. But what has worked for me is definitely the circadian alignment. Going to bed at the same time, waking up at the same time is paramount for me. It makes it feel really, really good. And then not utilizing an alarm, allowing myself that as soon as I wake up, I just roll my ass out of bed. Because I know that if I try to get to that point where my alarm is, that's actually going to negatively influence the stage of sleep. I'm going to feel groggy. That's not going to work. And so I actually love, if I have the time, especially as I'm trying to get into some form of 2-a-day fashion with training, I'm going to try and do my cardiovascular training first thing in the morning, because for me, that does qualify and helps you advance your circadian clock while also reaping the cognitive benefits of that and also getting core body temperature up so that I'm able to feel more productive when I get to that standpoint. And so we'll talk about ultradian rhythms if we have time. I know Doug asked me about that before, so I was primed for that today and ready to go. If you really want to take advantage of that, get your body temperature up first thing in the morning. That'll actually accelerate the rate at which your temperature everywhere else speeds up as well, and so do cognitive related actions. And so you are more ready to handle that first block of time where you are best able to handle hard things, which is first thing in the morning for most people, about after 2 or 3 hours after you wake up. That's where you should do the majority of your deep work that requires a lot of analysis, a lot of thinking, and a lot of brain power for most people. And so one of the things that I've started to do as well is push meetings from the morning to the afternoons, because, and this is something that I've been teaching my clients as well, because if you're finding that you are stressed because you're not getting things done, or at least the things that are big ticket items that require a lot of thinking and time and peace from outside distractions, you need to really free up that time first thing in the morning. Because if you are a morning person, or even a morning this evening person, that opportune time real estate for your brain is those first 6 hours after you wake up, as far as being able to be productive. If you're filling up that time with meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting and wondering why you can't focus worth hell in the afternoon, it's because you did not set your day up responsibly for your specific circadian rhythm to do so. Whereas you'll find, yep, go ahead, Travis.
I just want to clarify. So you wake up at 5 a.m. and then you do your cardio first thing, right? Yep. I mean, that's the first thing you do. You don't. So
for me, wake up. Sometimes I do a little bit of breath work, Bible study, then aerobic activity, right? Because I like to do the mindset work before I get after it, just so that I get it done. I like to utilize James Clear's habit stacking to make sure I do those things. And then just a little bit of cardio or movement. If I know I'm pressed for time, then it'll just be a quick walk around the neighborhood just to get that, that morning ambulation, and then off to get things done. And then I'll do my lift later on in the day that I've worked out in between my schedule, either between classes or between rapid clients.
When do you have your first meal, coffee, like?
So I like to, now that I'm kind of getting into wanting to improve my body composition a little bit from just having, kind of crazy season, I'm actually following a time restricted pattern right now, which is something that I'm also, wanting to talk about today when it comes to circadian performance, because your body thrives off of consistency, not just with exercise, not just with the activities that you do cognitively, but nutrition as well. And so in most people who are morningness, evening chronotypes, your optimal time for nutrient assimilation is about 2 to 3 hours after you wake, and it ends at about 3 hours before you go to bed for most people. That coincides with when body temperature starts to go down after it reaches its peak. That's when melatonin goes up to initiate the processes of sleep. At the same time, that's when insulin goes down. So when insulin goes down, your body is then less sensitive to when glucose or anything else is coming in, which means you're no longer as insulin sensitive as you were earlier in the day to be able to absorb nutrients. And so we talked about this a lot with chrononutrition. If your body is used to eating the same types of meals and generally the same sizes every 3.5 hours, and you are on point with that schedule each and every day, your body is going to thrive, all right? Because your body is now primed to being able to expect when those types of nutrients come in and in what orders. But if you look at some of our clients' profiles and why it is that they struggle with feeling tired and lethargic all the time, take a look at when they're eating and how much. Because I can guarantee you that if they're feeling like that, more than likely they're having one meal that's super large at one time, going 6 hours without eating, and then doing it again, having these really, really large boluses of blood sugar, of glucose that's jacking the blood sugar up, it's crashing down. Then they go for hours without eating anything because they're busy. They got 18 meetings that they got to get to, and then wondering why they're not able to function appropriately. And then it's probably something different the next day and something different the next. And so one of the first things that we can do, if you have someone that comes to you and says, hey, I'm not feeling great, I'm not performing well, I feel terrible, I'm having trouble with my bowel movements, I can't focus. Take a look at just when they're doing things. When do they exercise? When do they sleep? When do they eat? If you can correct those 3 things and get them on a schedule to where they can be consistent with it as best as possible, many of the symptoms start to alleviate themselves, because your body, once again, likes to work in a consistent schedule, consistent fashion. This is how you take advantage of circadian performance stacking.
Got it.
Yo, you just mentioned going for a quick walk in the morning, and you mentioned raising your body temperature in the morning. I'd imagine those things are tied together here. For people that don't want to work out in the morning or don't feel like they're a morning person, if they do work out in the morning, it's just not that great of a workout in comparison to early afternoon or whenever it is. Just going for like a quick, as you said, like a quick walk or a 1 mile jog. It takes you like 10 minutes as a light jog. And then like you head upstairs, take a shower, go eat your breakfast, and you're on with your day, whatever it is. Like, what are the benefits of just doing like some light activity, as you mentioned, in the mornings?
Yes. So everything that I just said, as far as just being able to kickstart your day, let's look at this from a physiological perspective, and then let's just look at it from the baseline mindset perspective. Physiologically, yes, you're raising your core body temperature. You're accelerating the rate at which core cognitive processes are accelerating as well. So you're accelerating the rate at which you're getting into that I feel awake moment. It also helps you accelerate getting rid of sleep inertia. So if you did not get the best sleep at night and you're feeling groggy first thing in the morning, go move, because getting your heart rate up and accelerating your blood flow is the best thing you can do to help fight that off and get a little bit of that inflammatory response to go away. And then you'll feel 10 times better as then being able to feel like you're awake and ready to go. That's physiologically speaking. And it also kind of helps quell the cortisol rise as well, because cortisol rises first thing in the morning. Have you ever noticed how you might be a little bit more irritable in the morning sometimes? Some people experience this. It's because cortisol is high, right? Cortisol, your stress hormone, is really, really high. So sometimes that's another good thing to do, and why exercise really, really helps with that, because it helps you be a little bit more resilient towards that early morning cortisol jump. And then just from a mindset perspective, psychologically, you just feel good because you accomplished something. First thing in the morning, that was something that you checked off that list. And so this goes back to, I forget his name. He's a famous general. He wrote that tiny little book on why you make your bed first thing in the morning, if you guys know what I'm talking about. I forget his name, but I can see Anders knows who I'm talking about.
Is that right?
It's something like that. But he talks about why you make your bed first thing in the morning, because it's that first win that
Yeah.
starts the catalyst for then getting more wins throughout the day. And then all of a sudden you've got these dopamine hits that required actual effort to where you'll actually get the longer release of dopamine more effectively rather than just getting. This is why you don't start your day on the phone, because if you start your day on the phone like this, which is something I was going to discuss, you're actually setting yourself up to be more ADHD like, because you're getting these large surges of dopamine without having to work for it. Whereas if you went for the walk, you did the workout, you actually did the hard work that was required to get the dopamine response. That's actually a much more beneficial way to get your dopamine fix. That's less, I should say, significant to where it doesn't all of a sudden come down below baseline, and you're able to keep that motivation going throughout the day. So that's a way that you marry the psychological with the physiological, and why doing exercise first thing in the morning can be beneficial from that cognitive perspective.
Is there a way or like a hierarchy? Because you hear like exercise first thing, and then sunshine first thing, and then if you're in SoCal, grounding first thing. Like, make sure you get your bare feet in the grass. Like, is there a hierarchy? Is like exercise really the first one? Like, make sure you get your heart pumping, or should I be staring at the sun and doing some sun gazing? Like, we can't do everything that we hear all everyone say. So, like, what is like the hierarchy of this?
So the biggest thing that I run into with exactly what you just said is not everyone can see the sun first thing in the morning, nor can we see it year round. And so for me, exercise is that first thing. It's like, what is
Now
that
you live
first
in
thing?
Buffalo. That happened.
Yeah.
You'll never see it again.
I'll never see it again. And because when I lived in Arizona, I saw the sun at 4 a.m. if I wanted to, being out there. And so with that being said, do the things that you can do. You got to pull the lowest lever that you can be able to grab, right? And so from that standpoint, exercise is the one thing that everyone can pull. All right. Everyone can pull that lever. All right. You can get a little bit of walking in, even if you look like Ralphie from the Christmas Story and you have to bundle up because it's crazy ass cold outside, which I will be going to class in the wintertime. And then when it comes to light, like, yes, of course, the sun is great. Getting sunlight through the clouds, cool. That works too. But as long as you're exercising and you got some form of artificial light on, that kind of mimics the similar effects as well, as far as what light would do. So that's why I say, if this was given a hierarchy, if you have the power to do everything, to get outside and bare feet and get in the grass and get some sunlight and do a little bit of a workout, cool. That's awesome. But if you can't do that, then hey, get some movement in, turn on the lights in your house, all right, and then get your day started. If you can do it like that, then that would be the absolute best thing you can do. Rather than first thing, checking your phone, rolling out of bed, not moving, then downing your coffee, and then wondering why you were super stressed out that day.
No doubt. This is great.
Yeah.
Yes.
On the bedtime side of things, how far out should people start thinking about and like planning for falling asleep within 10 minutes of their head hitting the pillow?
I would say you should have a plan at least 3 hours prior to going to bed. And I think this is some of the biggest issues we run into with our rapid clients, is why they feel like their sleep latency sucks, why they're not getting quality of sleep. It's because the majority of them are not thinking about the evening. They're just going into it. I think the biggest problem that not only our clients have, but everybody has, is they go into the day without any intention. If you go into the day with actually thinking about your time, and I'm not saying being completely neurotic about your schedule, but actually having an idea of what your routines are and when they start, I think that's step one. And actually having something that reminds you, oh crap, yeah, it's 6 p.m. I should probably put work away, start down regulating, spend time with my wife and kids, and do the things I need to do to relax. Or else you're just going to get taken away by the day. And usually that's when we end up watching TV for hours on end, or rolling into bed and looking at our phone and not actually doing the habits that serve us. So from my perspective, when working with clients, getting them to have an alarm. Just like you have a morning alarm, have an evening alarm that is set at least an hour before going to bed. I like to push it to 2 or 3 just so that they're aware, oh, I need to start some sort of routine or just easing into my evening. So that way I actually have that reminder to do so. Because for most people, they forget about it and they end up getting on computers and doing work. And then they expect to be able to fall asleep right after that. You can't run into bed and fall asleep. You got to ease in to that process. You got to let darkness do its thing. Because if you're a morningness, evening person, and like I just said with those hormones, core body temperature reaches its highest peak in late afternoon. That's when melatonin is supposed to go up. That's when insulin is supposed to go down. This is all predicated on you doing the things that allow you to do so. Getting in darkness, not doing things that raise your core body temperature. So this means not eating late or eating anything heavy late, not drinking alcohol late, not exercising too intensely late. All those things go against those normal patterns. So you need that time. I say 3 hours. If you can take 3 hours to at least give yourself an Apple Watch reminder or something that says, yo, it's time to start thinking about our evening time and start switching from active time to chill time. Let's start spending time with family. Let's start dinner. Let's start focusing on the things that help me relax.
Sure.
So-
in your mind,
So
in your
yelling
mind,
at
what?
your kids to go to bed would be bad. that massive spike that my wife was like, why is he so angry right now? It's like, brush your teeth. That's not good for you. Like, I'll let them know to see how that goes.
You'll get that one in a few years, Mr. Perry.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yo, what are these scenarios in which you should break some of those rules? Like when is training at 8 p.m. okay in your mind? Ever?
Never.
So based off this study, it was actually able to show that if you did a little bit of weightlifting and you were actually a late night chronotype, it actually served you. All right. And so if you're a late night chronotype individual and that's the time for you to get your workout in, or let's take it a step further, if you're a night shift person, if you're someone that works third shift and that is the only time you have to be able to do something like that, or you're a med school student who just has really, really long days and your only time to get it in is at nighttime, that's when I'd say, then do that, because exercise is, once again, always going to be one of the number one tools to help you become more resilient towards the effects of chronic disease, whether it's metabolic health related, whether it's cardiovascular health related, you name it. You just can't replace exercise as being one of the most potent swords to just helping you be more resilient to negative health risks. So those would be the certain circumstances. I would say when you have kids, for sure. If the only time you have is to get in a quick half an hour after they go down, and let's say, because at least I know my best friend's kids, they go down at 7. I'm like, that's amazing. The fact that they do that. All right.
No chance.
That's usually when they down regulate. That's usually when, he just chills with his wife. But if that's the only time you have to get in a quick half an hour of something, that's better than nothing. That might be a good time then to potentially consider that as a time for you to do so. So look at your circumstances. It's never going to be perfect. Do your absolute best to do what is conducive for your current schedule and season of life. And in my biased opinion, to exercise, every season of life should have exercise in it somewhere. So you just got to figure out where to put it, no matter what your life circumstances are.
What about once you're in bed? Like, I like to read. Obviously, I know you're trying to, no screens or whatever, but a lot of times a lot of my books are on Kindles, but I put it on the dark mode. But should I just eliminate that and go to I feel like that's less light than a lamp.
I've had this conversation a lot. And so are normal books better? Yes, of course. And so, but at the end of the day, I've had the same conversation about watching TV. If it's something where it's not blaring in your face, and you are literally up close to the television set, or you've got the Kindle, it's at maximal brightness up right in front of your eyes.
Right.
As long as you're not doing that, and for you specifically, Travis, it soothes you and helps you relax, and you have the greatest night's sleep possible, I'm not going to take that away from you. All right. That's going to be something that could potentially be conducive to helping you get a good night's rest. Same thing with TV. If for you, going and resting at night with your wife is watching an episode of Grey's Anatomy or something that is just great for you guys to connect and relax, and you've got the brightness down just a little bit and the TV is like 10, 15 feet away and you have the best night's rest, do it. Great. That's awesome. All right. You need to be able to, once again, this is one of the biggest principles of coaching. What works for you? And so, because for most people, what is that to help them relax? For most people, it is being able to watch a show. And so, is the light something we need to take, into consideration? Of course, but we actually see if it's far away and it's not, brightingly crazy bright, it's not a big deal. Watching a show is completely okay.
If you were to program out kind of like for executives, like a down regulation, kind of like breath work, just something that kind of gets them into, like, I always I feel like the transition from like hanging out and doing the TV thing to getting into bed, and then there's always like the we got to go to bed. The conversation has to stop between wife and I, and
Right.
now kind of like there's
Too much structure, too much control.
yeah, it's like how can I like have that transition, and then for me that's the only time where I think like I really own like that 5 minutes of like a breath work piece to like really calm down. Is that the time where they could do like some sort of yoga nidra or something along those lines to actually
Yes, and honestly, I would have that be like the kickoff to your evening routine, because that in my eyes is the one thing where, okay, I don't want to have a time limit on connecting with my husband or wife before I go to bed. Like that's not something that's going to be conducive to good health. Or I don't want to just all of a sudden stop something that's really, really engaging or something that is really, really relaxing that I'm listening to. But if I can start my evening routine around 6:37 after dinner, and it's a 5 to 10 minute breathwork practice or yoga nidra, and that for me helps me truly downregulate, feel at ease, feel relaxed, that's going to just then be able to allow me to ease further into the routine naturally. All right. Without have ideas of what I should be doing, but not be so damn regimented then that it's causing me more stress because I've got all these crazy, time. Oh, 8:30, I got to do my Melissa Capurro stretches. And then 8:35, I got to make sure I do my yoga nidra. And then I got to do this stretch for Coach Chris, whatever. And then all of a sudden you're stressing out too much, just trying to get your ass to bed. And I've run into that with rapid clients. It's a little insane.
Yeah.
So I think exactly like you said, kickstarting it with one fundamental habit, like a yoga nidra or a breath work that we know physiologically will calm you down, and then just ease into the evening from there with one or two activities that are down regulatory for you, and just let the night take you where they have, and just have a soft time that you want to be in bed by at least 9:30, 10, or whatever that time might look like for you. And so it takes, what we got to do for physiology and remembering that we're all just human beings at the end of the day. And you got to make sure that we are always playing to the human side of the equation.
You're the man. Where can people find you?
They can find me at Dr. C. Perry001 on Instagram. I'm the Rapid Professor. You can find me at the RTA Performance Lab as well. Don't forget, holler at me at University at Buffalo at my new stomping grounds, where I'll be doing really, really cool research.
Yeah. What's if you had like the a guess of what the first project you're going to be working on at Buffalo? What are you digging into?
Sleep and military. So they do a lot of work with thermoregulation in the military, and sleep deprivation significantly reduces your ability to regulate your core body temperature. This is important for athletes, and it's important for the military. That'll be the first thing.
Super important for military. Yeah.
Dude, I'm going to connect you with our Air Force person.
Would love that.
Hopefully kick it off with here in like 3 months. It's going to be awesome.
Sweet. Can't wait.
Yeah. Travis Mash, where can people look at your abs?
Mashelite.com. You go to my Instagram at Coach Travis Mash. You want to see the 8-pack.
Any OnlyFans coming up? Anything? No.
It'd be under a fake name if I were to do that. Not gonna do that. My church would disown me, so I'd like to.
Yeah, just wear a mask. Nobody will know.
Oh yeah, that's it.
I'm on Instagram, Douglas C. Larson. Mr. Chris Perry. I don't know how many times you've been on the show now, like 6 times. You're over there setting records. Always appreciate you being here, man. It's always fun.
Love being on the team, man. Big fan, Tom.
You bet.
I'm Anders Varner at Anders Varner, and we are Barbell Shrugged, Barbell_Shrugged. To make sure you get over to rapidhealthreport.com. That is where Dan Garner and Dr. Andy Galpin are doing a free lab, lifestyle, and performance analysis, and you can access that over at rapidhealthreport.com. Friends, we'll see you guys next week.